Hey all, so check this out. Go to take off the other day, been flying, felt like my engine was off. Turns out it was my throttle servo going out. I take off, chock full of bad choices. Probably should have flown out flat and level. Instead, I pulled it into a Harrier and the plane goes in. You know, in this hobby, we're just playing with toy airplanes. They're great big, and some people might not call them a toy, but you got to assess where you're at. You can't always control everything that happens, but you can control how you act or react. So when a plane goes in, instead of getting all upset, just take the time to look at it, shut stuff down, take it into the shop, and do what you can. So instead of doing a tutorial on how to do something fun, I'll teach you how to fix a plane. All right, well, following that video of what happened, I'm just going through and I'm starting to pull this plane apart, and just want to show you kind of what it is that I'm looking at. So you can see the former broke here, it's come apart up here, it's broken through here, the gear plate seems to be disconnected, there's a lot of issues down in here, but I can't tell what's wrong until I get into it. So this is how it works. I mean, when it comes to trying to repair a plane, just tear the sumbitch apart. I know I've got a problem here because I see I've got slack in here, so I've got formers that are broken all the way down. In fact, they're clear back here, the formers are broken, so it's taken a pretty good hit. It sucks. Alright, so what I'm doing here is just pulling off the covering of the sheeting. And I'm going to pull back the sheeting as far as I need to, so I can get into where it's broken, but I can also seam it and put it together fairly well. So I've got a lot of break on this side. I pull everything back and I just remove that sheeting so that I can see what's going on. I can't get in to repair something, or I don't want to get in to repair something if I'm having to fight that sheeting being in the way. It's cheap, it's easy to replace. So I'm cutting everything off, and as I'm going through, I'm just using my X-Acto and I'm just cleaning everything up. That way when I go to replace the sheeting, that it mounts really easy and it works well. I spend a lot of time just cutting everything down, making sure that everything kind of, figuring out what I need to do to get it to start fitting back together. I cut the belly open and almost like gutting a fish here, and then I pull everything back. Look how dark that ultra coat is underneath. It's just nasty. Getting a lot of exhaust inside there. So I cut everything back, and this way it allows me to look at the formers. I can see what's going on there. I can see down inside the airframe. Then I come in and I just decide it makes most sense to cut back all the sheeting on this side as well. Cut everything off, open it up, and get it ready to go. As I'm going through and I'm removing stuff, I'm also checking each of the joints and feeling where there are anything that's loose, if I can move anything, so I know what I need to repair. And then I continue to work on cleaning everything up. You can see I'm scraping that carbon fiber because that's going to mount back to the sheeting. It's a support item. I don't need to have it completely clean. I just have to have it so that I can get CA on there and it'll mount. All right, so assessment. Is it repairable? The answer is yes. These rear formers are going to be just a quick fix. Not much to them. The stuff ahead of that is going to be a little more work. Yeah, I've got stuff that's come unglued here. It'll just take a little buttoning up. Here's where our biggest problem is. And see, it's that laminated stuff that, you know, it adds strength, but see how it's come apart, and now it's got this buckle in there, and I don't for the life of me know how I'm gonna shape that to make it work. Same problem here, the gear formers come apart. That can go together pretty quickly. This one here is going to be a little bit of a challenge. It's not only broke there, but it's broke down inside here. This piece is broken, and that's broken. Yeah. Gear plate itself has a little bit of damage, but I think it's okay. I'm gonna have to re-engineer a plate to go in here. That's probably where my biggest issue is trying to get that keying to match up and go from there. Okay, so a quick update of where I'm at. What I've done is this side I've already replaced all the sheeting. I've cut it all the way back so that I can lay a layer of ultra coat going down. Where these formers were soft and broken, I've just added a piece of balsa to support them, and then I've got everything pulled off here. So this is the bad side, and this is kind of what I've done to replace a lot of it. Okay, so this is where these formers were. I added a support here. I added a support here. There was already, I bought this plane used, and he had already had to support it here. So I think it was already weak in that area. I will replace this. It's got to have a carbon rod in the inside of it. This carbon rod, what I'm going to do is take it, and since the carbon rod itself is broke, I'm putting a second carbon rod in here, and then I'm going to lash those two together with thread, and then I'll glue them in with underneath the sheeting, so I've still got the strength there. Gear plate is good to go. I've removed everything here. I will get it replaced so that I can put the vent in here. Everything else seems pretty good to go. So from now, I need to remove the ultra coat down to here. The reason for that is when fuel comes out and it gets in here, I don't want the fuel to hit the seams. I want it far enough back and high enough that it'll pretty much stay clean. So I'll pull all that back. When I replace it, I'll just replace everything at once. Here we go. Okay, so this, what I've done is I just took a Dremel, ran it down through, put the carbon in there. These will go together, and then I'll patch that with some carbon on the side of it or some wood to make sure that former looks good. This is how this works. So I just turn it on its side. I already have a seam right here from the old ultra coat, so I'm going to go right down that seam. I don't want to go too far because I don't want to compromise the sheeting itself. I just want to cut the ultra coat. Oh, I did have a break right here. So again, I just went in, put some light ply and a piece of hardwood here to support that. That's all epoxied together. And this should be pretty good. If we look right here, you can see the servo itself. It burned right through the bottom. So, yay. All right, so I'm gonna clean all this up. I'm gonna get these put into place and get everything sanded, and we'll be ready to get her fixed. So when you join two balsa strips together, two balsa sheeting, you want to key them in. This isn't the prettiest, but you can see it's keyed in here. So how do we do that? So here's the easiest way for me to do it, because trying to get everything to line up is tough. So I put my sheeting in so it's all lined up. This is my deadline, if you will. Now I've got one or two spots that aren't so great, and I can add a little balsa in there to fix those up. But basically, that's what it looks like. Now, what I'm going to do is just take a small piece of balsa on the other side, and I'm going to go right underneath, but I will have balsa underneath here, and then I just blend everything together. Hold that backing in there. Okay, now you can see here what I did is I put in a new piece of carbon in. I just used some thread, so I lashed the two together. I overdid it. I cut another slot here. This I put in, it was the carbon fiber on the bottom. Then I put some carbon fiber right here to support it because I had a beam in the middle, and then I just put a light piece of balsa over the top of it so it's solid, and that way I've got good strength in that former. Now everything's going to come around and it's going to come right up to this, but we're going to come up short. So you can see here there's one small piece that'll come up short. So it's the same thing here. We just put this on, everything's going to come up, it'll come up short right here. Once that is nice and fit, then we'll put in the next piece. So here's the most important part with this is you want to make sure that your thick CA is across that whole seam. Okay, so went in, I've seamed everything up, sanded it, got it ready to go. Look, it's not absolutely perfect. I am not worried about it. I want this plane functional and I want to be able to use it for null. And so there's a little bit of a rush job here, but it's done right. It's just, it may have some little sanding bumps or whatever in the covering, and for that I don't even care. I'm going to build a frame in here, get the vent in. I didn't have one continuous piece to go the entire length of the plane, and I kind of played with the idea of opening up a new roll, but it doesn't really make sense. So this is what I did. I just added a small piece of wood right here, so I have a solid piece that I'm gluing to here. Okay, so that way there's no seam that's out in the open. If it was in this whole area, it would be a problem. It'd be hard to seal. But when it's glued here, my seam is solid. So all I've done is just taken and I've glued down that seam, and then I've went down the seam here. Okay, 215 degrees, 220 degrees will activate the glue. It will not shrink it. Okay,
So I'm going all the way down, and I'm just curing that seam all the way down on both sides. Once I have that seam done, then I can go in and I can shrink this and it will be perfectly fine. Now, I've got to play with this a little bit and get it to go up and over, and that'll just be a matter of cutting it and folding it, and I fold it inside itself. Now, the reason why I started with the tail first is because I want the seam to cover this direction. So if exhaust is coming along and it's coming down, this seam isn't forward, it's covered this way. So the exhaust goes this way and it doesn't pull up and get gunk, oil and stuff underneath the seam. So I'll cross the seam over here, I'll cross it clear over here. I've crossed the seam down, I'm down about a 1/2 inch on each side. And then this is not tight yet, it's just kind of loose. Okay. Now I end up, I don't know what you'd call it, freehanding a lot of this. So I'm going to pull down and I'm going to seal the seam here. And not touch this. I'm going to seal the seam here and not touch the other side. I can split this right up the straight edge, and that leaves me with an end to go over, and then I seal it. Right now I am not working on shrinking anything down. I'm getting the seams to seat. I want every seam to completely cool before I go in and shrink it. Then when I shrink it, the seams won't pull back. But if I start shrinking it and the seams are hot, then they pull back.
Once I have all my seams sealed, then I'll start using the heat gun. Look, I have my heat gun on kind of a mid setting. It's not super high, and I'm doing this, I'm showing this in real time because it is really important to understand that I am not shrinking this down all at once. I go through and I slowly start shrinking it. I work the middle, I get it to pull in. I start working the sides and I get it to start sticking. I start low on the wood and then I work my way up the wood on the sheeting. And I have that big open area in the middle that allows all the air to escape. So I want to push my bubbles up, but I'm not overheating it super fast. This is how slow it goes. This is how much time you should take. This total time shrinking ends up being about 14 minutes. I'm going to speed it up from here. All right, so why do I take so long? Okay, there are 3 temperatures when it comes to Ultracoat. There is 212 to 225 where you activate the glue. Then there's 250, 265 degrees where you do your first shrink, and then around 300 degrees where your second shrink is. You can't really regulate the temperature when it comes to a heat gun, but if you hit that 300 degrees, then you end up spoiling the shrink. So you just do it slowly, 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 small increments at a time, and it'll get there eventually.
Okay, so here's where we're at. I just finished the covering here, swapped out the wheel pants, put new wheel pants on it. I've got my tray in here. And what I did is just put some foam inside here that redirects everything so it only goes right here. Hopefully I can keep that exhaust from going back into the plane. Wheel cuffs are fine, the gear was fine. So when I put new tires on, put a new servo in, got a Savox 1270, got everything set up. My throw on that is, or my resolution, I'm at 125 for open and close, so I'm really happy there. Had that little hooey in the side, so I put stickers on it, just cover that up. Everything else is fine. The wood is back together, everything looks good. Everything's covered, shrunk down, tail wheel's back in place, and this plane's ready to go. I'm just waiting on, I have new spark plugs coming in today, so I'm going to swap out the spark plugs, and I'll get the cowl on and throw a new prop on it, and it is good to go. Fixing these planes isn't always easy, but if you just take a little bit of time, attack it with purpose and say, okay, I've got this, work on those elements, and then just do it in phases, you'll get it done and it'll work out just fine. I don't know, hopefully this helped out. This was my week, so I'm sorry for the lack of flying tutorials, but you got a how-to on fixing a plane, because sometimes things fail. I'm not upset about it. I'm not frustrated. It's not a brand thing. It's just a servo that I have used for a really long time. It's got tons of flights on it, and it finally failed. That's just how it works. You think about how much vibration is going into your servo. I mean, it was a 400 ounce servo that I've had for a lot of years. So hopefully that helps.
Thanks everyone for the comments and support. I really appreciate it. It makes it worth doing this. Hey, let me know what you think about the camera on my chest thing, working in the shop. A little different content. It's all part of the game though. Hey, until next time, please like, share, subscribe, leave comments below, and happy landings.